Most lawn care business owners want something like this. But what if I told you that this will outperform that in almost any lawn care maintenance business? Hey, Cody Owen with Lightspeed Lawn Care Marketing Podcast. Hey, if you are listening to this, I threw up a picture of a Ford Raptor, and then I threw up a picture of a tiny import Japanese Kei truck. So you'd probably tell me that you'd look stupid in it, or your guys would look stupid in it. But do you want to look cool, or do you want to make more money? That is what we are going to be talking about today on the Lightspeed Lawn Care Marketing Podcast. Hey, the big benefits I'm going to outline with these Kei trucks are the efficiency. They get 28 plus miles to the gallon at road speeds. It's just the bed size you need for urban and dense suburban maintenance routes. They're easy to maintain. Parts can take a second to source if you need to. They're small, they're easy to maneuver. They're gonna be more easily insured as long as you find the right insurance company. And you can add a small trailer for bigger equipment to do a route of mulch jobs, whatever that looks like. So before we dive into all that, if you want a more efficient, more profitable business, please give this video a like. That will just let us know that you want more content like this. And make sure that you're subscribed, because that is the kind of thing that we are always focused on here on the Lightspeed YouTube channel. Okay, what is a Kei truck? If you have not seen these before, the Kei truck specification was designed specifically for the Japanese market. The Japanese government wanted to get big trucks off of the roads and out of their dense urban cities. So they developed this spec that at this point goes up to 660cc engines. They're small two-man cabs. Most of these deliveries that they're trying to replace were handled solo, so you don't need a crew cab. They have a short overall length, so they're very maneuverable in tight streets, and one more vehicle on the road is taking up like half the space of a big box truck if you don't need that big box truck to make the delivery. They weigh in at about 1,500 pounds. Some go a little bit bigger depending on what market it's made for. I know Indonesia's spec for this, they typically build a little bit bigger engine, bigger truck a little bit. Are you ready to have a website that is effective, reliable, and at a reasonable price? With a website from Green Frog Web Design, they offer free unlimited updates, free website hosting, a free domain name, free Google My Business optimization, and monthly updates included. And this will give you a website that's 1 to 5 pages, all for one monthly price of $245. No lump sum upfront payment required. Green Frog guarantees that your website will be live in 3 weeks from their projected start date, or it is free for a year. The spec was introduced in the post-war period, 1949, and it's been modified a few times. For our purposes, the biggest one of note is that in 1998, some of the changes were made to allow for bigger engines up to 660 cc's. All right, they use a cab-over design to maximize bed length. It's a feature that we're used to seeing in the US applied in bigger vehicle box trucks, right? Anything where you're trying to maximize the efficiency of space in the back, so not necessarily a work truck, pickup truck is gonna have a huge hood in a lot of cases now. We're more used to seeing this in Isuzu box trucks that I know a lot of lawn care business owners love using those. Okay, so you know what a Kei truck is. Now we're talking about getting one here, right? So the nitty-gritty of getting a Kei truck can be as simple as buying one from a nearby dealer. You can just buy these in the States now. You can either buy one used, you can buy one new, but you might have some sticker shock, right? Because you've heard, even from me in this video, that Kei trucks are cheap. And then you go and look, and new models can sell for 18,000 plus. You're like, why don't I just buy a Ford Ranger at that point? But this is the biggest but of this video. You can import an older Kei truck from the Asian market for way cheaper. I'm not an expert in customs and importation policies and all of that stuff, but there are a number of services you can work with that make this really easy and cheap for you. You can go full DIY if you're really comfortable navigating imports. Maybe you've imported something in the past, you feel really confident you can do it. You can save a little bit more off of not using some of these services. But this is the loophole for a less than $5,000 work truck. Any vehicle 25 years or older doesn't have to pass emissions, and very few regulations apply to their import. So most of these trucks have been well maintained. They've been driven on delivery routes their whole life. They're light-ish duty work trucks. And a lot of import companies will have videos of the vehicle starting, driving. They lay the camera down, pointed up, and drive the vehicle over it so that you get a look at the transmission and see how things are looking there. Louisiana and Oklahoma in particular have really lax laws about using mini trucks on public roads. The only place that they're banned there is highway uses, which hopefully we'll talk, when I'm talking about the lawn care use case for this, I'm hoping that you won't need to take it on the highway. Many states have no specific law addressing their use. Just look at your local laws and see if this will fit in your jurisdiction. They are not highway friendly, but they're definitely useful on streets and roads, regional roads versus getting on like a full-blown highway with a speed limit over 60, 70 miles an hour. Okay, so I want to talk to you about the lawn care use case, and I think that's where we're going to spend the bulk of the time on this video. Here's what I think about using this in your lawn care business. If you can operate a two-man crew doing maintenance jobs with a smaller mower, you put a rack for their blower and their line trimmer on one side with it hanging toward the outside so that you still have full use of the bed width. You can get a mower, maybe a stand-on, and a smaller push mower, depending on the lawns that you're doing and the size to get into the backyard, and still have room to have ramps come down. So if you could add another truck, a whole other crew to the business for $5,000 or less, would you do it? That's the question here. That's the value proposition. Wrapping this truck is going to be much cheaper because it's so much less surface area than a bigger truck, and it's going to give you a really unique thing for your marketplace. And that's where I think that you could also consider, I know a lot of guys will buy, pretty cheap cars and wrap them to use for quote vehicles. So you might have like, like Cavalier, right? Small nondescript commuter car, and you wrap it in a bright color and use that for your quote vehicle. If you had one of these as a utility vehicle that could be in a pinch used for something else, that could actually move some things for you if you needed to. You're not throwing mulch in the trunk of the quote Cavalier. So you could use it in a pinch. You have it for a quote vehicle the rest of the time. Very easy to maintain. Japanese engines, very bulletproof. So the important thing that I think makes this super useful for a maintenance crew is if you have a tight route that sticks mostly to roads that are under 50 miles per hour. So you have to look at, okay, how do they get there from the shop? Does this work? It's going to have, okay, so as long as it's legal in your market, a brief stretch on the highway. I know I'm from Texas, so I have kind of a skewed view of how fast highways move because our speed limits are really high. I know in a lot of places, having a highway that the speed limit is 55, 60 miles an hour is not out of the norm. And you can hit that for brief stretches in these cars. You just don't want to run that engine all out for hours a day. You don't want them to be hopping on the highway between every single job, which would be bad for the business regardless of what truck you have. So the big drawbacks that I see are, if you run three-man crews, there's no room in the cab for a third person. There are two seats and that is it. And it's got less creature comforts than a lot of modern work trucks. Some of these you want to make sure when you're buying it that it has AC because some of them don't. Japan gets hot in the summer, but for these kind of jobs, it's more like UPS trucks don't have air conditioning in a lot of cases right now. You can't move super quickly down the highway. You don't have the get up and go to get out of the way that you might need in a smaller vehicle. You've got a limited load capacity, which sucks because when you need more load capacity, you need it, right? You don't want to get screwed over. All of that to say that your other use cases here are, any quick upsell project that you're doing, you could send one guy out to do lots of yards with pallets of color with one of these trucks, just with loaded in the bed, covered over with a tarp so that you don't lose all your leaves on the way there. And just like really simple things like that, where you can send out an email campaign, get 20 to 30 customers signed up, and then you send one guy out in this little vehicle. He goes and bangs it all out in one day. I mean, that would be incredible. So you could do a spraying rig for a one-man operation on this, and then you've got so such a cheap way to scale your spraying division. I know labor is more expensive when you have to work with people that have licenses and things. So if you can reduce the cost on the back end, you know, they don't need a huge truck unless you're carrying massive amounts of liquid. You know, then you might look into doing an Isuzu box truck build or something. But if it is a smaller capacity thing where you have a technician go out and he can do 10, 20 lawns in a day, you got small lawns in your market, this could be a really good build out option for that. And then I already talked about how I think it would be really cool to do an estimator in this kind of unique vehicle that may not be super common in your market. Although I am starting to see them more often here in Dallas. I know that I've talked to people seeing them in Houston, not used in lawn care yet. They're really, really common for grounds crews. Lots of golf courses will import these. And it makes sense, right? They're like much cheaper than your typical like John Deere Gator, unless you're buying a pretty used beat up one. But the cool thing is that these are able to be made street legal in most places. You just got to look into your local laws, make sure that you're going to be good. Tell me in the comments, after hearing a little bit about this, you've probably seen some of these yourself. Would you drive a mini truck on one of your maintenance routes or in another place in the business? Would you outfit maintenance crews with them? And what about that as a cheap, unique vehicle for estimators? Tell me what you would do down in the comments. If you have seen a lawn care crew build out of a Kei truck, I would love to know about it. Please, you can drop a link down in the comments. You can shoot me an email, Cody@lightspeedsocialagency.com. Hey, make sure you are subscribed. It was a little bit shorter episode for us, but this was just, I wanted to get us cooking on this idea and see if anyone had any thoughts on it. Hey, I will see you next week.